I was 15 years old, and I had become completely addicted to Phantasy Star Online on my Sega Dreamcast. What happened next not only killed the console, but led me to do something I'm honestly not proud of. This is the story of what I did with my broken Dreamcast, and how Target never found out. Hey guys, before we get into this episode of My Retro Life, I just want to say that this episode was voted on by our amazing patrons over on Patreon and YouTube memberships. If you want to help support the channel and get involved with all sorts of behind-the-scenes extras and patron exclusives, head on over to the My Retro Life Patreon or click the join button right here, and you too could help decide the next episode I do. Prior to the Sega Dreamcast, I never once had a video game console die on me. I never played a video game console to death. And that is what happened with my Sega Dreamcast. I mean, going back to when I was 4 and 5 years old, I remember friends telling me, hey, be careful, don't leave your NES on for too long. If you leave it on too long, it'll blow up or it'll overheat. I heard these rumors from friends, and it scared me so much. In fact, there's actually a little moment that my dad caught in this home video clip of me freaking out over the NES at my cousin's house being left on for too long.
Hey, Tyler, won't go away.
It won't go away. You can play it after dinner. Aunt Michelle cooked you dinner.
I'm freaking out here because I thought the rumors were true. I thought it might die or get overheated and burst into flames. Over time, I left video games on for hours and hours, overnight even sometimes, so that we wouldn't lose our progress in a game. You know, that's why you would leave a system running on for that long. A game that didn't have password save, you had to leave it on overnight sometimes, or when you had to go to the store with your mom or dad, you just left the console on. And no video game console I ever owned ever died on me or blew up. But that rumor was actually proven to be correct. When I was 15 years old, it was sometime, probably the summer of 2001. I remember this night very vividly. I was able to stay up extremely late this night. And I don't think it was a weekend. I think it was just during the week. During that summer of 2001. And we probably, that evening before I started playing Phantasy Star Online, had our TV dinner with a classic episode of Seinfeld, or rerun, which was our ritual. Every night we'd watch Seinfeld, guys. Like, that was our thing.
She's sticking it to me that she makes more money than me. I'm sure she was just being nice, buying you the coffee.
And even though Seinfeld was a show about nothing, this was a night where something really bad happened to my Sega Dreamcast.
Sonic Team is working on Phantasy Star Online, which is not only a continuation of the legacy, but also the first massively multiplayer game for the console. And this game is about as online as you can get.
I was playing Phantasy Star Online. More than likely, I was playing with this guy named Grendel. This guy named Grendel was somebody I played with constantly. I'd like to say he was my best Phantasy Star Online friend. More than likely, we had already gone through the entire game together. We probably had defeated Dark Falls in the ruins, and we probably were wrapping up the night. And of course, that last battle with Dark Falls was always so epic. We enjoyed it so much, and really, every time you beat the game in multiplayer mode online, it was always such a shot of dopamine, guys. Like, it really felt so good, and you felt so accomplished when you did it. It would show your characters' names on the screen, you know, the party of other Phantasy Star Online players that you just beat the game with and had gone through it with. Oh man, It just felt so good. But man, what was about to happen was not going to feel good at all. I remember sitting in my dad's recliner. I was sitting in his recliner playing the game. He had gone to bed, and he more than likely told me not to stay up too late, but of course I always did. It was the summer. I was a teenager, and I was playing way into the wee hours of the morning. It must have been 1 o'clock in the morning or 2 o'clock. So you got to picture this, guys. The room is completely dark, and the only thing illuminating the room is the glow of the TV screen in Phantasy Star Online coming off that TV screen. That's the only light source in the room. I don't exactly remember what I was doing or where I was, but I know I was in the middle of talking to other players. We weren't like playing the game. We were just hanging out in the online lobby. Now, if you're familiar with the Dreamcast, if you're a Dreamcast owner, you know that the Dreamcast fan is pretty loud. Like, it makes a lot of noise in the room. That fan is constantly going. And I'll never forget this. All of a sudden, as I'm playing the game, talking to other people, my TV screen goes black, and the fan of the Dreamcast shuts down completely. It's gone. The fan is out. And I'm like, that can't be good. No, that can't be good at all. And the TV screen, like I said, had gone black. So it had lost picture and it lost the fan. I remember just shouting, oh, no, 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 no. Like, oh gosh, freaking out. But I'm trying to be quiet. So I'm like, oh, no, 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 because I don't want to wake up my dad. And I'm realizing I'm in deep trouble here, that the Dreamcast may be dead. But I have a little bit of hope in my heart because the light is still on. That orange diamond glow from the Dreamcast system is still on. And so I'm like, okay, well, maybe it's not completely dead. So I get up from the recliner and I go over to the system and I turn it off. The orange glow goes away and I say a little prayer real quick and I turn it back on. Nothing. It's completely dead. Then it all sinks in. My Dreamcast is dead. What am I going to do? My whole world at this time revolved around playing Phantasy Star Online, especially because it was summertime. This was supposed to be the summer of Phantasy Star Online, and here was my Sega Dreamcast dead. Oh, I was so upset. And I was also kind of worried about what my dad was going to think. I didn't know if he was going to get upset with me. I didn't know how he was going to react to the Sega Dreamcast being dead. So that night, I just gave up and I went to bed. I tried a few more things. I tried unplugging it, plugging it back in, turning it on and off a couple of times, but nothing helped. The next morning, before my dad went to work, I told him about what happened the night before to my Sega Dreamcast. I explained to him that I didn't do anything wrong, that I felt like I was just playing the game. I didn't realize how long I had been playing, and really, I felt really robbed of my Dreamcast. This wasn't just the end of me playing Phantasy Star Online, which was my whole world at this point, but it was the end of me playing my favorite video game console of the time, Sega Dreamcast. And I left my dad with that. He went on to work. I think while he was at work, he was probably thinking about this the whole day at work, trying to come up with some sort of solution to our Dreamcast problem. And when he came home from work that day, he laid it on me.
I just wanted to know if you'd like to go to the store.
Dad had concocted a plan. Before I get to this next part of the story, I want to say that I do not condone what me and my dad did on this summer night at our local Target store. I'll never forget Dad explaining to me the plan. He said to me, "All right, this thing looks brand new, right?" "Yeah." I told him, "Yep, it looks good." "All right, well, here's what we're going to do," he said. "We're going to buy a brand new Sega Dreamcast. And then we're going to come back an hour later and we're going to return it, saying it's broken, it's defective, it doesn't work. But inside the box will be the broken Sega Dreamcast." I know what you're thinking. You're either right now thinking to yourself, "That's genius, your dad's brilliant," or "Oh my gosh, I can't believe your dad gamed the system like this." And with that, we put our plan into motion. We drove up to the Target. I remember going inside with my dad and buying a brand new Sega Dreamcast, getting the store employee to help us, and we got that brand new Sega Dreamcast. But here was my dad's plan to make it look completely legit. We went back home, and Dad took our broken Dreamcast, opened up the brand new Dreamcast, took that brand new Dreamcast out, and immediately put the broken Dreamcast in the packaging with the plastic, everything, and did everything with precision. It was almost like Indiana Jones swapping the idol for the bag of marbles. I kid you not, guys, this is what it felt like we were doing. We were swapping out this Dreamcast with such precision and care because Dad did not want this plan to fail. Once he got it in the packaging, the broken system was in that new Dreamcast box, with everything else looking perfect and pristine. Oh man, it felt like nothing could go wrong. It felt like the perfect switcheroo. I remember going back to Target with Dad after that, and I was a little bit nervous. I really was. I was like, are we going to get caught? What's going to happen? And Dad explained to me in the car, he goes, "Look, don't worry about it. Nothing's going to happen. In fact, this really isn't a bad thing we're doing." This is how he rationalized it to me. Because even as a kid, I was kind of like, is this really okay? You know, he said, "I worked at retail stores before." In fact, he was a retail manager at an electronics store. And he explained, "It's all right. The system's going to get tested. We're telling them we're returning it because it's defective. And they're going to test it and defect it out of the system." Meaning it's going to get sent back to Sega. Dad was basically skipping the repair fee that Sega themselves would put on us if we sent the console back to Sega directly. And, you know, I kind of feel for him and understand, because we felt pretty gypped that Sega made a console that would break like this just because we played it too long. And really, a system shouldn't die like that from overuse, especially if it's in a well-ventilated area, you're taking good care of it. And that's what we did. And so we rationalized it. It made sense to me. And then we did it. We went into that Target that night. And I remember my dad saying, "Now you let me do all the talking." He said, "Let me do all the talking, and I'm going to handle this." The customer service area of this electronics department in Target was near this area where there was like expensive cameras and stuff under glass. And so I remember standing there by the glass with all these expensive cameras underneath us and stuff. And I remember Dad basically laying it out there, just explaining that we bought this system earlier in the day and we tried it out and it doesn't work. The employee looked at it. He looked at the packaging, saw that it looked brand new and pristine, and He didn't really bat 2 eyes. He just went ahead and did the return. That is how I swapped out my broken Dreamcast for a brand new one at our local Target. With the help of Dad, I might add. I spent the rest of that summer of 2001 playing Phantasy Star Online and accumulating hundreds upon hundreds of hours of game time in that game. And you know what, guys? My Dreamcast never, ever again bit the dust. It never died again. So I think there was something faulty with that original console that we had. My dad and I may have gamed the system. It may have not been the most ethical way to get a brand new Sega Dreamcast, but we did it. It happened, and it's a story I'll never forget.
This is like the police have the camera up there. Cops in Sugarland. Well, boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Bad boys.
I do feel like as a consumer, we were justified in what we did. I also kind of think, Dad, we should have done it better. We should have gone through the proper channels and did it the right way. And that is up for debate. And really, it depends on your own personal ethics or choices in something like this. I'd be curious to hear from all of you watching what you think of it. Was my dad in the right as a consumer who felt burned by literally a Dreamcast that burned up and fried? The motor died and the whole thing just died on us? Or was my dad in the wrong for this by sort of cheating Target out of a brand new Sega Dreamcast? I do feel like it was wrong, but I'd be curious to know what you all think. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode of My Retro Life. If this is your first time to the channel, do consider subscribing. I love talking about my game crazy family and all of the amazing adventures we had with video games, so many of which were caught on tape by Dad. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you next time.